The Hobbit movie begins its story with a character named Bilbo, who was writing the story of his young life to someone named Frodo. He tells him in this message that this is the right time for me to share with you my adventures, which I had previously refused to share with you due to your young age. And here he starts talking about a city named Dale, which is a peaceful city famous for its markets and its distinctive location because it is located opposite the greatest gates of a kingdom named the Kingdom of Erebor. This kingdom was ruled by the king, King Thror, king of the Dwarves. Thror has one son named Thrain, but this city was beautiful because it had precious stones extracted from the rocks or huge quantities of gold. Meanwhile, the dwarves were extracting the precious stones until one day a person who was digging discovered a strange stone that shone differently, and it is the stone that is the heart of the mountain, and the king called it the king's jewel. Because of this stone all the dwarf tribes and others swore allegiance to King Thror, including the king of the elves named Thranduil. After that King Thror began to care about gold excessively, but the next day a powerful dragon appeared who loves gold, but the dragon headed straight for the gold. Here King Thror quickly took the king's jewel to protect it, but he couldn't, and at that moment the dragon took control of the gold and the king dropped the king's jewel into the gold. Here, his son Thrain followed him, pulled him out and got him out. At that moment the entire kingdom of Erebor was destroyed. After that the elf king Thranduil arrived to help the dwarves, but he arrived late and saw the dwarves fleeing from the city. When Thranduil withdrew because he didn't want to sacrifice his men in front of a mighty dragon. In this case the dwarves became homeless and their lives turned from a nation that creates glory to a lost nation without a homeland. Now we return to Bilbo, who stops writing because Frodo has entered. He asked Bilbo and said to him, "What are you doing?" But Bilbo said to him, "You will know later, and now you have to go to the greatest wizard named Gandalf to invite him to the party." At this time, Bilbo began to remember 60 years ago and we see Bilbo when he was young. At that moment, the wizard named Gandalf came and this was the first time Bilbo saw him. Gandalf introduced himself and said to him, "I am looking for someone to share my adventures with." Bilbo was surprised and said to him, "What adventure?" Here Bilbo refused and said to him, "I don't want adventures." At that moment, he went and entered the house, but Gandalf left a glowing mark on the door of Bilbo's house and he left. In the evening, Bilbo hears a sound and the door is knocked. When he opens it, one of the dwarves enters and starts eating from the food in Bilbo's house. After that the door is knocked again and another dwarf comes out and enters. After that a third time the door is knocked, and in the end all the dwarves come with Gandalf and they all enter and eat from Bilbo's food. After that the last one to enter is their leader Thorin, the son of King Thror. At that moment, everyone gathers and starts explaining to Bilbo and telling him that we need you to join us on a journey to reclaim the kingdom of Erebor from the dragon. There is a prophecy that says the dwarves will be able to enter their city because the dragon has been hidden for 60 years, which means his power has weakened and he has become frail because he hasn't used his power. Here we also learn that the dragon has been unseen for 60 years, but they needed someone to get them to the mountain to find the hidden door because Gandalf had the key to this entrance. At this time, it has to be someone from the hobbits to enter, and we learn that the hobbits are very fast people and they don't resemble Bilbo because they are known for their speed of movement, and also the dragon doesn't know the smell of hobbits. But Gandalf offered Bilbo a contract stating that he would get 14% of the treasures, and at the same time they don't bear any responsibility for the injuries that might happen to him, for example scratches or burns or even death. One of the dwarves mocked Bilbo because he saw him scared and said to him the dragon might burn you in one moment, and from fear he fainted. When he woke up he refused to join them, but Gandalf said to him that this journey will change your life, and if you return you won't be the same person because of the adventures that will happen with you. You will learn a lot from these adventures. And the next day in the morning, Bilbo was happy because there was no one in the house, but when he saw the contract in front of him he changed his mind and signed it and ran after them. Now we see the dwarves and they see that Bilbo came to them and he agreed to join, or actually joins them, and their journey begins on horses. Meanwhile, on the way Bilbo asked Gandalf about the bet that he had heard the dwarves talking about. Gandalf said to him, "The dwarves bet that you won't come." Bilbo says to him, "What did you expect?" Gandalf says to him, "I didn't disappoint my expectation of you, or my prediction was right." At night, they camped and Bilbo heard strange sounds, so he asked, "And what are these sounds?" The brothers named Fili and Kili tell him that these are orcs who eat human flesh. They started scaring him, but their leader Thorin got angry at them and said to them that this thing is not funny, but he is telling them his story with the orcs. After the dragon took their kingdom, here King Thror tried to reclaim it, but the orcs led by Azog the Defiler stood against him and Azog killed the king who is Thorin's grandfather and took his head, while Thorin's father who is Thrain disappeared and no one knows if he is alive or dead. The war ended with a heavy loss for the dwarves even though they cut off Azog's arm, but the victory was not sweet because they lost a huge number of their people. But at the same time, we see two orcs watching the dwarves from afar and they even inform their leader. After that, the dwarves walked through the forest. Here Bilbo asked Gandalf and said to him, "Are there others like you wizards?" Gandalf said to him, "Yes, there are 5 and one of them is named Saruman the White, and then there are 2 in blue robes but no one knows where they are, and one of them is a wizard named Radagast who wears a brown robe and he loves animals more than humans and guards the forests in the east." On the other side, we see Radagast in the forest and he finds a hedgehog injured by black magic and he tries to treat it in his house. When he saw evil spirits hovering, at that moment he started absorbing the magic from the hedgehog and there the hedgehog lived, so the spirits fled. Radagast went out to follow them and saw that they were giant spiders coming out of the old forest. Now we return to the dwarves who arrived at an abandoned house. Here a verbal argument happened between Gandalf and Thorin, so Gandalf left them and walked away. Bilbo went at night to take food for Fili and Kili because they were guarding the horses. Bilbo saw them shocked so he asked them where the horses were. They said to him there should be 16 horses but we found only 14. Here they hear a strange sound, so they discover that the mountain trolls took the horses, and we learn that they are stupid or their weakness is sunlight because when they are exposed to the sun they turn to stone. Bilbo rushed to save the horses and when he tried to cut their ropes he was caught by one of the mountain trolls. At that moment the dwarves attacked them, and they held Bilbo and threatened the dwarves that if they didn't surrender their weapons they would kill Bilbo. So the dwarves surrendered their weapons and the mountain trolls tied the dwarves and put them on the fire to cook them. But Bilbo tried to buy time so he started talking with the mountain trolls and telling them you have to skin the dwarves before cooking them because it will ruin their meat. The mountain trolls got into an argument and delayed until the sun came out, and suddenly Gandalf came at the right time, broke a rock and the sunlight hit them, turning the mountain trolls to stone. After they turned, Gandalf said to the dwarves, "The mountain trolls wouldn't have reached here without magic because there is a magical force that brought them." After that, the dwarves entered the cave of the mountain trolls and were able to find their treasure and rare, well-crafted swords. But Gandalf took a small sword and gave it to Bilbo and said to him, "This sword is suitable for your size and it will glow if you are near mountain trolls or near orcs. But remember, courage doesn't mean you die. True courage is saving others." At this time, the wizard Radagast came and Gandalf asked him, "Why did you come?" He said to him that I saw black magic in the forest and I chased the spiders, so I knew they were coming out of the kingdom. But Gandalf was shocked and didn't believe it and said, "This is the sword they tried to kill me with and it is not from the world of the living." Suddenly, fierce animals from the orcs' followers attacked them but Radagast told the dwarves to run. Here the dwarves ran into the tunnel and Radagast stayed to distract the beasts. The dwarves started walking their way until they reached a place named Rivendell, which is under the rule of the elves. Here Thorin said that these are our enemies and it's impossible for them to protect us, and if I knew we were going to come here I can't think of coming. But Gandalf tells him that we are forced to ask for help from them to read the map we have. Thorin agrees and after that the dwarves enter the elves' castle and meet the leader of the elves, Elrond, who welcomes them with vegetarian food because the elves are vegetarians, but the dwarves didn't like the food because they are not vegetarians. At night, the dwarves asked Elrond to read the map, but Elrond explained to them and said to them that this is written in the ancient dwarf language, which is the moon language and it can only be read by moonlight. We learn that Elrond is the only one left from this lineage who can read such messages. When the moonlight came out, writing appeared saying that you have to enter on a certain day, but the problem is that this day is very soon. Elrond knew where they were going after reading the message and said to them, "What you are going to do is very dangerous." On the other hand, we see the orcs who returned to their leader Azog, and we learn that one of his men said to him that we couldn't catch the dwarves. So Azog ordered his army to prepare for battle. As for Gandalf, he went with Elrond to meet Galadriel and also to meet Saruman the White. Gandalf explained to them and said to them that we are in danger because if the dragon unites with the Lord of Darkness who uses black magic, it means a catastrophe will happen. But Saruman didn't believe it and said to him, "We eliminated the Lord of Darkness 400 years ago or there is no threat now." Here Gandalf said, "What peace are you talking about? The mountain trolls attacked and the orcs returned and there is a necromancer summoning the dead and he brought a sword from the Eastern Kingdom and this sword belongs to the King of the Witches who was buried among the rocks with a strong spell." Galadriel believed his words secretly and told him telepathically that I believed you but the others won't believe. After that, we see the dwarves and they escape to continue their journey. We learn that they agreed with Gandalf to escape so they crossed a rocky mountain and rock giants were fighting. They got trapped in the middle of the battle until they entered a tunnel to escape. There the mountain trolls captured them and took them prisoners. But Bilbo stayed behind them so he tried to save himself but he fell in a dark place. When he met a strange creature named Gollum, a ring fell from him. At this time, Bilbo saw a strange ring and Gollum wanted to eat Bilbo. But Gollum realized that Bilbo had taken his ring, or from his heart he fell, or suddenly he put on the ring and became invisible. At that moment, we return to the dwarves and see them imprisoned with the king of the mountain trolls. But the king, when he saw Thorin, mocked him and said to him, "Thorin, son of Thrain, king without a kingdom, and I know someone who pays gold in exchange for your head. Who is Azog?" Here Thorin was shocked and said, "Azog, I killed him." But the king said to him, "You will see if he is still alive or not, because he will come and take your head in exchange for gold." Here chaos spread when Gandalf suddenly appeared and he freed the dwarves and killed the mountain trolls. Bilbo followed them after escaping from Gollum. Here the dwarves were shocked and said to him, "How did you escape death?" But Bilbo didn't mention the ring. Gandalf noticed the ring, but he kept quiet. Suddenly Azog himself appeared with his army of orcs and they attacked the dwarves on the mountain. At this time the dwarves climbed the trees to escape. The orcs surrounded them, and here Gandalf told the butterfly to bring help for them to escape. The trees at that moment started falling, and when Thorin angrily attacked Azog, Azog overpowered him and he was about to kill him. Here Bilbo suddenly pushed Azog and saved Thorin, and the rest of the dwarves joined the fight until the butterfly brought the giant eagles and they were able to help them and save them. They flew them to a safe place. When Thorin woke up, he looked at Bilbo and said to him, "I thought you had no place among us, but I was wrong." And he hugged him in front of everyone. After that they stood and looked at Erebor from afar. In the final scene, we see inside Erebor huge amounts of precious gold, and here we learn that the dragon is still alive. The adventure is still at its beginning because the events up to here haven't ended.